creativity for me is a raw material. Like it's a resource, and we all have access to it. It's infinite. All of us have access to creativity. Creativity is a resource that we access with our inner game, the essence of who we are. The key to unlock it is purpose. So when we unlock the door to purpose, we unlock creativity. We also unlock collaboration, compassion, courage, curiosity, all of the things, in fact, we need in order to tackle the problems that we face in the world or the problems we face in our lives. The doorway into this is intuition, so the sixth sense. So that's the doorway. The key to unlock it is purpose, and when you unlock it, you unlock creativity. Now, there is a distinction. I draw a distinction between creativity, which is the raw material, which you all have access to, and the act of creation. So the act of creation is taking the raw material and creating something with it. Now, the majority of the time, we are creating something with it, which is polluted by our beliefs. So we're creating it more with our ego than we are with our essence. The consequence of that is we're creating things we don't need, which are creating unintended ripples. So the act of creation is an act where you bring the essence, like this energy, into form. So the formless into form. This is the metaphysical world of nothing, it's energy. This is the world of form. So you take creativity, and if you align it with your purpose, by unlocking your purpose in that moment, and you don't pollute it with your mindset, with your beliefs, in the process of creation, you create a masterpiece. So everyone is creating all the time, right? We're creating all the time. We're creating all the time. And it's not just you're writing an email or you're writing a book or you're creating a business or you're creating a project. Every single thought is creating all the time. It's creating your reality in every single moment. So you are going through that act of creation. The reason the planet is out of balance is because the majority of the time the act of creation isn't aligned with your purpose, and the consequence of it not being aligned with your purpose is the creativity which you're accessing is not true creativity. It's like so the difference between breakthrough creation, like real breakthrough creativity, breakthrough innovation, and incremental innovation. You're just spinning the wheels, like you're intellectually creating something. That to me is not true creativity. It's just a variant. You're just copying other people and you're just changing the ingredients. Unilever and every other consumer goods company does. They just change the color, change the ingredient. So Apple's doing it. There's no innovation coming from Apple. The breakthrough innovation was the first one of these, but now it's just variant to the theme. It's incremental. It's intellectual innovation. It's, oh, what else can we add? But there's no great breakthroughs coming from this. And what the world needs is that. So I've probably gone way beyond your question, but I think it's important we understand the relationship not only between creativity and purpose, but also the relationship to what you create, because it's not just enough to be the change. The being leads to the doing. And unless you've decided to become a monk, which you haven't if you're watching this podcast, you haven't decided to become a monk or a nun in this lifetime, then you are in the world of doing. So you must create something which is aligned with your purpose.
So how do people access their creativity?
Well, the first step is a very easy step. You articulate your purpose. So purpose being the key to unlock this, and that's something, that's what we did in the purpose program, which you've mentioned. We launched that last year. We developed an application which was based on my experience of helping 1,000 people to articulate their purpose. Now, I use purpose differently than many people. So many people use the word purpose to explain what you do, like a doing. I use purpose to describe who you are and why you exist. Who you are, like it's like really the core of you. So the first step is to articulate that. once you've articulated that, most people think, okay, it's done. Actually, no, that's the easy step. The more difficult step is then aligning every thought with that process. You think you just have to align every action, but every action comes from things you say, and everything you say comes from your thoughts, and everything you think comes from an impulse. And where does the impulse come from? The impulse comes from your inner game, without getting into the details of what is the inner game. Albert Einstein called it the unified field. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. Other people have other names for it. You choose the name that works for you. There are multiple different names out there. So the secret is to first of all articulate your purpose, but then, and we've known this for 5,000 years. Go back to the I Ching. They knew it 5,000 years ago. Dawn of civilization. This is a problem from the dawn of civilization. So, like, look at the I Ching. Look at Tantra. Look at Buddhism. Look at yoga. Look at all the ancient wisdom cultures. They all knew this. So, if we've known this for 5,000 years, why don't we do it? Why are we in the state we're in now? Well, you have to go back to the dawn of civilization to understand. So there were many inventions in the first civilization, Sumer, which is the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, modern day Iran. If you go all the way back there, what you'll see is there are a number of inventions, and I'm going to talk through the most important ones. First one is we started to measure time. So time is infinite. Like in this world, you're outside of space and time. Right? You're in the metaphysical world. There's no space and time. It's only in this world that there's space and time. It's only our senses who create the perception of the space and time. So in this world, no space and time. So step into this world, like before civilization, we didn't have measurement of time. So measurement of time then disconnects us from this world where we're connected to all that is. First disconnection. Before that, time flows through us. Second invention, we invent slavery. We invent slavery 5,000 years ago. We invent hierarchy 5,000 years ago. So, we talk about inequality today as being an issue that we kind of point the finger at the United States. Well, hold on a moment, I'm British. Who invented slavery? Thousands of people have died in the US, tens of thousands. 20 million died at the hands of the British Empire in India. Who invented concentration camps? I mean, that's 5 times the number of people who died in the Holocaust. Who invented concentration camps? The British Empire in South Africa. Like, where's the responsibility? But where does it really come from? It comes from back in Sumer, where we invented slavery. We put one person above another. So as soon as you do that, as soon as you put one person, people aren't equal. Like, you're starting to disconnect yourself from true connection with somebody else. And we invent, not only did we say men aren't equal, but men and women aren't equal. So marriage, women became the possession of man, so that the man could guarantee that child was his child. So inequality comes, it's 5,000 years embedded within our genes, if you go back to the epigenetic side of things. And then the final thing we invented is money. I didn't need money before. We valued people for their contribution to the tribe. Now, I'm not saying for 1 second that before, let's go back to civilization. Let's go back to tribal behavior where we're all living, sitting around a fire. But at least we didn't have mortgages and rent and taxes and all of those things. And at least we were connected to all that is, because our sixth sense, like all of your ancestors, had a strong sixth sense. Why? Because they escaped from being killed by a wild animal, and they hunted. So they used their sixth sense in order to tackle those things. But over the last 5,000 years, every single transition has slowly accelerated all of these inventions to the point where we've now disconnected to such an extent from our essence, who we truly are, that now all we're left with is this fraction in the outer game. And we think that this is going to solve the problem. It's not going to solve the problem. Reconnecting to this will solve the problem. So how do you, to come back to your question, how do you do it? What's the second step? You need to reclaim your relationship to time. So you expand. You need to reclaim your relationship to power. So you expand. You need to reclaim your relationship to love. so you expand. You need to reclaim your relationship to money, so you expand. And you need to keep on going around that cycle again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And as you go around that cycle, you will hear the impulse of an idea, and the impulse of that idea is your masterpiece. And when you hear that, then the next step is to bring that to life. You are called. There is no other way of putting it. You are called to do that. You know you have to do that. I spoke to a woman today. She's working for an energy company. She said, she came on the phone, she said, I know that I'm supposed to become a medium. What? I know I'm supposed to become a medium. She just knows. And all that a medium does is taps into this world, listens to what's going on here. Think of it like flip it the other way, right? So as opposed to like this, flip it like this, and imagine this is the roots of a tree. All a medium does is taps into the roots of a tree, or taps into the roots of a forest. And what we're doing at the moment is too many of us are building trees which are independent from other trees, don't have deep enough roots, and therefore run the risk of being blown over. When you tap into this, your tree can grow higher and it can reach its full potential. And the way to do that is to go around this cycle, what I call the cycle of life, which, by the way, maps onto the seasons, maps onto the I Ching, and is in total harmony. So it maps onto, believe it or not, wealth dynamics. Like it maps back onto the energies behind wealth dynamics. Spring, summer. I shift it by 90 degrees. So I talk about spring here, summer here, autumn here, and winter here, because winter is when you regenerate underground. Like this is when you reseed, you plant. So you sow the seed. It's an impulse initially. It can lie underground for years, decades. But at a certain point, the ground is fertile enough. In other words, you've heard the message. Then it starts to grow. But the first thing it does is it grows down. Then it grows up in the dark. Then at a certain point, it breaks through. You have to nurture it. You have to grow it. That's a different stage. Then you need to pollinate it. Like it goes from a growth into a bud. The buds on this plant here. It grows into a bud. Now these buds here, these buds are going to go into flowers. So it gets up here, it turns into a flower, it flourishes. That is then pollinated. So cross-pollinated by other entities which come into the ecosystem. That then comes round and is harvested. Like if this is fruit, this is the source of fruit, like an apple. And then right at the core of the apple, like when the person is consumed, when it's harvested, is a seed. That seed you then replant, and you keep on going around the cycle again and again and again and again and again. So that's how you create your masterpiece. Step one, purpose. Step two, reclamation, till the point where you hear the impulse of an idea. Step three, continue round and keep on growing it and keep on creating this flow. Because the real potential of the seed, the purpose of a seed, is it may lie underground for decades. It's to an entire ecosystem, not into a tree, into an entire ecosystem. Why is an ecosystem important? Because trees support other trees. So it creates a canopy. The canopy creates a microclimate. The microclimate keeps more minerals, water, and sugars underground. That microclimate shares all of those minerals with other trees. So all trees photosynthesize at the same time. And it then creates a microclimate above, which induces rain, which is what trees need in order to flourish and keep growing. So think of the rainforest. So that's ultimately how you go from wherever you are. Like you can be anywhere on that journey. You could be a seed, you could be a sapling, you could be a tree, you could be a copse, you could be a wood, you could be a forest, you could be an ecosystem. Wherever you are on that journey, there is a next step. And even if you're all the way at, ecosystem, as we know, somebody who we both know very well is creating that, there's still another step. That's an infinite loop. It never ends. The reclamation never ends. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Infinite, because like I draw it like this, that this is the box, but actually we don't live in boxes. That's the creation again of Suma, the opposite. Everything's infinite. So the reclamation work is infinite.
That's stunning. And I think this visualization of a garden or an ecosystem speaks so much to one of the first points that you made, which is, of course, a beautiful all encompassing, like going back to understanding that it is not an individual endeavor. Purpose, meaning, life is not an individual endeavor. It's a collective ecosystem that all of us are creating together. And at the same time, while we're all creating it together, you are all of that. You are the drop, right?
Yeah, you
the
are
entire
the drop.
ocean in a drop.
Yeah. I will make one tiny distinction, and it's not my distinction. It's a guy called Peter Koenig, who's one of my partners, who actually invented the reclamation work. In fact, he invented the word reclamation work based on Carl Jung's work. And he makes a distinction. It's a really interesting one. All of us talk about collective today without really understanding what collective is. And his point is that there is a single source to every collective, which runs counter to much of the literature, like Frederick Laloux, Ken Wilber, which suggests that we're moving towards this collective consciousness. When you try to create a collective purpose, and I've done this within organizations, what happens is the collective purpose dilutes the personal purpose. So in fact, the collective must be held by a single person, but multiple people can hold the collective from multiple different perspectives. In other words, in a forest, your tree will be a center of that forest for you, but your tree, Kathleen, will be the center of the forest for you. And anyone watching this, their tree will be the center of the forest for them. So there is a balance between the collective and the individual that is really important to understand. And there's very, very little literature out there that gets this balance right. Theoretically, we all connect to this, and then we go off in la la land. In practice, our consciousness isn't high enough in order to be able to do that, and we're not there even in the next 5 years, we're not there. So practically speaking, we have to accept that we are a center in the forest and contribute from that space. It's a longer conversation, which we probably don't have time to go into, but I wanted just to make that distinction because we often get that wrong.
I think that's a really important distinction for sure. I think it's easy when we speak about the metaphysical or the spiritual to get so lost in this view of the collective that we forget where we stand, right? But it's only from that center that we can really make the difference that we want.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are coming to our time, and I would love for you to share what it is that you are working on and where people can find you on the internet.
Wow. Well, so what are we working on? Working on a few things. The big thing I'm working on is Masterpiece. And Masterpiece is, okay, it feels like charades. Masterpiece is a book. It's a film. Actually, it is a film. I mean, there are a series of webinars out there about it. The book out later this year, date yet to be set. So you can sign up for the book if you're interested in the book. And the book explains everything I've just talked about and way, way more. It explains all the history. It explains that whole process I talked about. So how you go from the seed of an idea, your purpose, all the way through to growing into an ecosystem. It describes the whole journey, giving examples and a lot slower than I've just talked it through. The second thing you can do, and I don't do this very often, but because it's you, Kathleen, I'm going to do it for you. I am going to give you a link. You'll see wherever, below, above, I don't know, wherever. There's a link to have a conversation, because I know that you're, like the people you speak to, they're the tribe, right? And they're cool. And we don't grow this, I don't grow this alone. So if you're a misfit, if you're a crazy one, if you're an artist with a wild idea, if you've ever been rejected in your life, join me, join us, I join you, whatever, right? But literally follow the link, set up a call, love to talk to you. And I'd love to hear where you are in your journey. And it's just a call about, I want to understand where you are, and I want to hear what it is that you're contributing to the world, because this ecosystem, it's not exclusive. Like, this is a forest that already stretches across the entire planet, and it's going to continue to grow and it intermingles with all of the other forests. So those are the two things. One, look out for the book. Two, look out, set up a call. And three, just for you to be aware, there is a program. In fact, we're right in the middle of the program right now. I need to jump on the call to that program right now as you see this. And that program is a 10-week program which guides you through that journey. So I'll give you that link as well. So that's what I'm up to. Voila.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alexander. And we will, all of the show notes will contain all of those links. So definitely go in, book a call with Alex, make sure that you sign up for the release of the book. I'm super excited to read that. Having now had this conversation, I feel super ready to dive into your book. So super excited about that release. And if you're interested in working with Alex on the Mastermind program, the Masterpiece program, Mastermind program, you can.
Well, it includes a mastermind, so you're channeling.
You can definitely access the link to find that in the show notes as well. So do connect with Alexander online. And with that, we come to the end of our time together. Thank you so much for this conversation. I feel that it's definitely tuned me back into why I'm doing what I'm doing and what is so important. And I appreciate your aligned channeling. I feel like this was, a really deep-rooted episode that I'm excited for people to dive into.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate you putting this together. And I've got a podcast which I'm also launching, so I'd love to get you on that podcast as well at some point. It's called Masterpiece. And I know you're in the process of creating your masterpiece. So I would love to have you on that program as well. And that will be another opportunity for people for me to reverse the process and ask you all the questions I want to ask you.
That's so cool. I definitely look forward to that. All right. Awesome. And listeners, you can tune into another episode of the Ikigaia podcast next week. Make sure you check out those show notes.